Hello and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Tuesday, March the 4th, 2025. Not only an extra busy news day, but a busy Tuesday on the calendar. Shrove Tuesday and the start of Mardi Gras, more traditionally known as Fat Tuesday, and even Pancake Day, because traditionally Catholics, Lutherans, Anglicans, Methodists would feast on pancakes in preparation of Lent. Sort of a day of feasting ahead of fasting, which begins tomorrow, Ash Wednesday already, my friends. And don't confuse today's Pancake Day with National Pancake Day. That's much later in the year, and it has no religious ties to it. But this Fat Tuesday, Shrove Tuesday, is also Tariff Tuesday.
On the tariffs, is there any room left for Canada and Mexico to make a deal before midnight? And should we expect those Chinese tariffs, the extra 10%, to take
no room left for Mexico or for Canada? No, the tariffs, they're all set. They go into effect tomorrow.
Mr. President, just to follow up on my colleague's question.
And just so you understand, vast amounts of fentanyl have poured into our country from Mexico. And as you know, also from China, where it goes to Mexico and goes to Canada. And China also had an additional 10, so it's 10 plus 10. And it comes in from Canada and it comes in from Mexico, and that's a very important thing to say. Yeah, please, go ahead.
President Trump taking questions at the White House yesterday. Canada almost immediately said it will impose retaliatory tariffs on billions of dollars of U.S. goods. A statement from Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau said there's no justification, that's a quote, for the new U.S. tariffs, noting that his country has taken steps to further limit the flow of fentanyl during the month that Trump had paused the tariffs. The whole time Trump was threatening tariffs, but they were on hold. They say they took action to or further limit the flow of fentanyl. China, which could hurt us even more, economically speaking, said it will put an extra 10 to 15% tariff on U.S. farm products and cease importing U.S. logs. The tariffs, which again are tied to immigration and fentanyl, will certainly be something the president talks about tonight during his address to a joint session of Congress, as well as the Russia-Ukraine war. More from former White House Director of Strategic Communications, Mercedes Schlapp, on The Right Squad.
President Trump tore into Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelenskyy today after Zelenskyy said the end of war with Russia is still very far away. President Trump writing on Truth Social, "This is the worst statement that could have been made by Zelenskyy, and America will not put up with it for much longer. This guy doesn't want there to be peace as long as he has America's backing and Europe." In the meeting they had with Zelenskyy, stated flatly that they cannot do the job without the U.S. The president today also saying Zelenskyy should be more appreciative of the United States.
Well, I just think he should be more appreciative because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us because, as you know, that's right there. That's the border.
And it turns out the American people back President Trump. A new CBS poll finding a majority approve of President Trump's handling between Russia and Ukraine, 10 points higher than Biden's approval a year ago, and higher than at any point in Biden's presidency. Tiana, we were just talking about this. Yeah. It's like reality TV watching this sort of diplomacy play out in the Oval Office. And the mere fact that Zelenskyy today saying that we're very far away from peace.
And remember, all this started because Zelenskyy did this publicly. It's fine behind closed doors to have requests, although let's be clear, when you are coming asking for our billions of dollars, that's a request. That is not a demand. There were reports back in 2022 that Joe Biden was getting fed up with Zelenskyy's attitude. It was a poor choice, in my opinion, for him to not have been using a translator this entire time, because there's a total cultural disconnect where he doesn't understand. You don't call the vice president JD. You call him Mr. Vice President, the same way he calls you Mr. President. And look, if Europe thinks they can handle this, they can bankroll this, officially, NATO countries are supposed to spend at least 2% of their GDP on defense, and the target is supposed to be 3%, right? There are only 3 countries that do 3. Us, Poland, Greece, and only 3 more that spend at least 2. There is no way they can afford that. Right.
Chris Plant, Mercedes Schlapp, and The Right Squad, weeknights at 10 o'clock Eastern. Definitely check it out. And let's go back to yesterday's other big announcement at the White House prior to the reporters asking all those questions.
Today, Taiwan Semiconductor is announcing that they will be investing at least $100 billion in new capital in the United States over the next short period of time to build state-of-the-art semiconductor manufacturing facilities. I think mostly it's going to be in Arizona, which is what I understand, which is a great state. I like it because I won it, but I won most of them, actually. But I did. We won it, and we won it big. The most powerful AI chips in the world will be made right here in America, and it'll be a big percentage of the chips made by his company. But as you know, they're based mostly in Taiwan, and they're far and away the biggest. There's nobody even close. This $100 billion in new investment will go into building 5 cutting-edge fabrication facilities in the great state that we just discussed, Arizona, and will create thousands of jobs, many thousands of jobs, and they're high-paying jobs. In total, today's announcement brings Taiwan Semiconductor investments to about $165 billion. They've started already. Among the largest new foreign direct investments in the United States, Apple, as you know, made a big announcement last week of $500 billion, and we have some others that have announced. We have many that want to announce. But I don't have time to do all of these announcements, I tell you. But for you, I'm doing the announcement. Thank you. This will create hundreds of billions of dollars in economic activity and boost America's dominance in artificial intelligence and beyond. Semiconductors are the backbone of the 21st century economy. And really, without the semiconductors, there is no economy. Powering everything from AI to automobiles to advanced manufacturing. And We must be able to build the chips and semiconductors that we need right here in American factories with American skill and American labor. And that's exactly what we're doing. As you know, Taiwan pretty much has a monopoly on that market. And I think pretty much is not a term that's even appropriate. They do have a monopoly. And this is a tremendous move by the most powerful company in the world. A matter of economic security. It's also a matter of national security for us. Mr. Wei will be able to diversify and have his a tremendous presence in another place and a very safe place. And I want to thank Taiwan Semiconductor for doing the announcement. And I'd like Mr. Wei to say a few words. I also want to thank Taiwan Semiconductor for doing the announcement. And I'd like to ask Mr. Wei to say a few words, if you might. And I'd also like to ask Howard and David, you can say a couple of words, but maybe you should go first, because right now he's the most important man in the room. I'm sorry, fellas. Please. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Great
Mr.
honor.
President.
Thank you.
First, I want to say thank you to Mr. President to give me this opportunity to announce our big project in the U.S. TSMC is the world's largest chip manufacturing, funded by Dr. Morris Chang in 1987. It's now at the forefront of semiconductor technology, supporting AI advancement and industry growth. In fact, I would like to wind back the time that in 2020, we have to thank President Trump's vision and his support. So TSMC start the journey of establishing the advanced chip manufacturing in Arizona. And now, let me proudly say, now the vision become reality. In Phoenix, Arizona, with 3,000 employees, we are producing the most advanced chip made on U.S. soil. With the success of our first fab, so we are now very happy to announce we are going to invest additional $100 billion in addition to our current $65 billion investment in Arizona.
$100 billion in addition to the $65 billion they already invested. $165 billion by Taiwan Semiconductor and thousands of jobs. Great news for America. Even better news for Arizona. On top of the $500 billion from Apple and the $500 billion Stargate project and the $100 billion from SoftBank. It's amazing. Remember when $1 billion was like an incomprehensible amount of money? Now companies are throwing around billions like they're millions. Almost like the Pentagon. Former Navy SEAL Carl Higbie has a look at the latest Doge target.
It almost seems like Elon is watching this show because today the Pentagon's area of focus is civilian employees that I laid out over 2 weeks ago. Civilian employees. There are about 750,000 of them in and around the Pentagon, or in the DoD as a whole. Some of them are former military guys that are doing the same thing they did for a similar department in the military, but now as a civilian, they're getting paid twice as much. And 5,400 probationary employees are gone as of today, but they're probably wishing that they took the buyout. But Pete Hegseth has instructed all the remaining civilian employees at DoD to respond to the OPM email asking, what would you say you do here? 5 things you did last week. They will have 48 hours to respond. And if you don't answer, it may lead to what they're saying is further review, which in Doge world is not really a good thing for your employment. Look, I know when people start talking about defense cuts, everyone screams, or at least the neocons, we're going to be less safe. We won't be if you do this right. What we can stop doing is being the world's police. That's right there, saves a ton of money. But beyond that, the Pentagon wastes money. Trump has been on this for years.
$60-70 million planes. You mean you think it's cheaper to leave it there so they can have it than it is to fill it up with a half a tank of gas and fly it into Pakistan or fly it back to our country? You think, yes, sir, we think it's cheaper, sir. That's when I realized he was an idiot.
He's right. How is it cheaper to leave all that stuff in Afghanistan, especially since at the same time we were spending billions more dollars to order new versions of the exact same thing we were leaving over there? Put the half a tank of fuel in there and fly them home. And we did this in Iraq, too. Look, I was asked to call in airstrikes on military equipment that still had the plastic seat covers on the vehicles. It was ridiculous. Here, shoot this Connex box worth of ammo because we need to get rid of it. And then the next day, like another military transport shows up with more ammo. What are we doing? When I was in Fallujah during the drawdown in 2009, they literally flew in pieces of a D9 bulldozer, assembled the thing, put a bunch of armor plating on it, never used it, and then left it there on this base. I'm sure we were taking turns like driving it around this empty base, and it was fun as a 27-year-old, but we were just running over like a bunch of trailers that we also left there. But when I look back on it and I see how much I pay in taxes, it's maddening to me. This is about spending money smarter. Do we need 700,000 civilian employees? No, trust me, we really don't. And if they need a target of specific areas, may I suggest starting in the procurement wing of the Pentagon? Our procurement process is a mess. Okay, true story. I'm a brand new guy. I check into SEAL Team 10. I got tons of motivation, about zero experience to match it. What's my first task? Hey, Carl, here, test out this new gun we want to evaluate. They send me out to do all these stupid things. Okay, shoot it, skydive it, probably $1 million just in jet fuel to do that one. We swam this stupid thing for like 4 miles along the coastline of the Atlantic Ocean. We had to live outside in the freezing cold with it for a week. We had to bury it, dig it back up, whatever we could think of to try to destroy this thing. And at the end of this whole evaluation that probably cost millions of dollars, me and the other 7 poor souls that were chosen to do this stupid dog and pony show decided, yep, this gun is a piece of junk. It breaks all the time. It's unreliable. We should definitely not use this. Plus, everyone already really likes the M4 that we use, so shouldn't we not change that? Anyway, we didn't hear anything back for, I don't know, like a little over a year. And sure enough, a year later, like 4,000 of these stupid things show up at the team and they start handing them out like they're doing us a favor. And I remember looking around the room and we're like, what? WTF, man. And what's worse, too, on a broad scale, we spend billions, and I mean billions of dollars to build, buy, or access things at the Pentagon that by the time they're approved, they're almost completely obsolete. I mean, pick one. I have a better thermal scope on my hunting rifle than the team's issue right now. Why? Because it takes them 5 years to approve anything, and by the time it does get approved, Cabela's has a better version for $1,500. This is like there's some animosity for technological advancement from the approving wing of the Pentagon. You can fire all those people. It'll be better. Once they're committed to something, though, they just keep spending money on this stupid thing rather than innovating. It's like the F-35 program. They launched this 5th-gen fighter program around the same time we invaded Iraq. Didn't roll one out until after we left the country, like 10 or 15 years later. Well, what was the point of that? We crashed a bunch along the way. And oh, by the way, it's a $1.7 trillion program over its lifetime.
All right, so we went from billions to trillions, a $1.7 trillion program that essentially served no purpose. And go back to what Carl said in the beginning. 750,000 civilian employees in the Pentagon. 750,000. Great insight and information from former Navy SEAL Carl Higbie, the host of Frontline, 5 p.m. Eastern on Newsmax. Let's wrap it up with an update on Attorney General Pam Bondi, the FBI, and the next phase of the Epstein files.
So what comes next in this pursuit of transparency? For more, let's welcome in former FBI agent Jonathan Gilliam, former FBI Supervisory Special Agent John Nantz. John, I will start with you. An overwhelming rollout, a rushed process. What happened here? And if she thinks that the FBI is sitting on more papers, why wait until after all of this to release to say so?
Yeah, it seems like there's a lack of coordination between the AG's office and the director's office. We'll need to know more information about what went on at New York Field, but it was obvious that the AG didn't feel like she had the appropriate amount of material before she released those documents. So I'm not sure what the rush was exactly. I don't think you're not going to see there's no such thing as shredding documents. The FBI information management system is incredibly robust, and it's fully discoverable. So that's not going to be the problem. The Oklahoma City bombing contained about 3 million documents in the case files and otherwise. So you're not talking about something that you can just send a zip file over to DOJ that will deliver all those documents. There's probably also some physical evidence involved as well. So I think there may be a little bit of lack of communication or coordination. And the director has only been in office for about a week. So I think we're going to have to cut these folks a little bit of slack until they can get their legs underneath them and iron out some of these issues.
Yeah, Jonathan, so the Attorney General believes that the New York field office is in possession of thousands of related documents and failed to disclose them. Can you imagine any situation where it would be okay for an FBI field office to deny a direct request from the Attorney General of the United States or the FBI director?
Typically, when you look at the way the FBI and the DOJ works and the relationship between the two, I would not come up with a scenario where, and I don't think John would either, where when the DOJ asks for the information, that they're going to get it. But here's the problem, is that, and I would love to hear John's take on this as well, because I'm wondering if some of this evidence was never logged into, or this information was never logged into evidence, because that's the only way, as John was just saying, how robust the system is. Once something's put into evidence, it's there. It's not like it's on some remote hard drive that they can just delete off of. It's redundant. Once the stuff is in there, it is highly secured. And so the only plausibility here is that some of this information may have went to the Southern District and never got put into FBI evidence. And so that would explain why it's not there, why it can't be found, or why they're not pushing it forward. But I'll tell you something else I believe is that this should be a hard lesson for the Trump administration, which includes Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, is you have to tread lightly with these social media people, because had they just said that they had the information and then didn't release it, that would have been one thing. But when you give it to these quote unquote influencers who go outside the White House and hold it up in the air and shake it, you get a perfect example of the reality of what influencers actually are. They influence emotion, and that's about it. And that's what bit them, I think, more than anything.
Yeah, great point. And we know that Pam Bondi says she's not backing away from this. Americans will be getting the full Epstein files. She says, quote, "We will get everything. We will have it in our possession. We will redact it, of course, to protect grand jury information and confidential witnesses." As she said, there's more than 250 victims that she's seen in this report. But the American people have the right to know, she says. So, John, do you think Americans will get full transparency here? Will we ultimately see all the files?
Yeah, absolutely. Kash Patel has stated over and over again that he's committed to transparency. Pam Bondi's committed to that as well. You basically have a new sheriff in town, so there's not going to be any more of this obfuscation or cover-ups.
Former FBI special agent and town hall columnist John Nantz, along with former FBI agent Jonathan Gilliam, on Wake Up America. Even though last week's Epstein release wasn't what Attorney General Pam Bondi said it was going to be, and we were all disappointed, think about this. The information, as little as it may have been, the information that Bondi and FBI Director Patel released after barely being in office for a week is 100% more than the Biden administration released in 4 years. And you remember, they were going to be the most transparent administration in history. We waited this long, so be patient. I'm confident that Pam Bondi and Kash Patel are eventually going to get the goods. If not, they're going to find out that the files were destroyed, which also would not surprise me. Think about the vast implications that could be involved in this. I said that was going to wrap it up, but then Wake Up America spoke with Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn about the president's speech tonight.
What are you hoping to hear from the president tonight?
Good morning. I am so looking forward to President Trump's remarks and hope that he will focus on what he's been able to accomplish in this first 6 weeks and lay out that vision for the future. And talking about the American dream is so very important. I talk to Tennesseans every single day who want better for their children, who want their children to be able to dream those big dreams and find a way to make them come true. And what President Trump is doing is getting government off your back, out of your pocketbook, and saying, let's open doors of opportunity, not only for today and tomorrow, but for decades to come. I agree with that and fully support him.
You know, Senator, I'm going back to that previous report we had where you had the governor of Massachusetts lie to people about Nazi salutes. You had the governor of Illinois lying that they have a messaging problem and not a policy problem. What kind of stunts do you expect? I mean, the Democrats are still struggling to figure out what's wrong with them. What stunts do you expect them to pull tonight?
Well, first of all, I will say if any of them are planning not to attend and bring a guest, call my office. I have so many people that would like to be there. We'll be happy to take your guest ticket off your hands. And secondly, when they cannot have a message, they do not have a message, what are they going to do? They're going to resort to antics, and they're going to just rave on about things. But what they're missing is this. The more they condemn what Republicans are doing and this administration is doing, the more they distance themselves from the American people. The American people fully support President Trump's agenda of securing that border, of reducing inflation, reducing what the federal government spends, making certain that we address crime in our communities, that we respect law enforcement and our military, that we get men out of women's sports, and that we return our nation to being that leader on the global stage.
Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn on Wake Up America this morning with Charlotte McBride and Mark Lotter. Senator Blackburn mentioned there the American people want to keep men out of women's sports, but Democrats in Washington do not. 45 of them in the Senate voted against the Protect Women in Sports Act last night. 45 men and women voted in favor of letting boys compete against girls and men compete against women in girls and women's sports. And I'm going to say it's mainly because of how much they can't stand Trump. But I don't know what's worse. If they legitimately, honestly feel that way, that it's okay to have boys and men in girls and women's sports, or if they're willing to make that sacrifice just because of how much they can't stand Trump. Either way, it's sick. Many of these people also voted against the Laken-Riley Act, so just keep that in mind. And there is good news from the Senate. They did approve Kari Lake as a special advisor to the Voice of America Network. That's the U.S.-run global news agency. And Kari, I know you listen to the podcast. Congratulations. I'm still waiting for you to DM me on X at @radio_Marino, please. And Linda McMahon was confirmed as Education Secretary for as long as there is a Department of Education. Former Florida Congressman Lincoln Diaz-Balart has died at the age of 70. According to his family, Diaz-Balart served in Congress from 1993 to 2011. He is the brother of current Florida Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart, as well as NBC News host Jose Diaz-Balart. And by now you heard Dolly Parton's husband of 60 years, Carl Dean, passed away yesterday in Nashville at the age of 82. Dolly announcing it on X, thanking fans for their prayers and their sympathies. And Jon Stewart, host of The Daily Show, has officially invited Elon Musk on the show after Elon responded to some of Stewart's criticism of the Department of Government Efficiency and to him personally by posting on X, "Why not have me on the show and we can talk about it?" or something to that effect. If not for their differences in politics, I can see Elon and Jon Stewart getting along pretty well, right? Like being buddies. Stewart even said, for 15 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, whatever. And I'd be really surprised if Elon didn't take him up on the offer, especially since he initiated the offer. Stock market started the day in the red after finishing deep in the red yesterday. The Dow Jones Industrial Average sank more than 600 points after President Trump announced that the tariffs would officially be taking effect today. The Dow Jones Industrial Average opened down about 100 points this morning. And if you're driving a Kia Soul or Celtis, the company is recalling about 137,000 of them, 2021 to 2023 models. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration said the piston oil rings may have been made incorrectly and could damage the engine or make it stall out or catch on fire. So check with your dealer if you're driving a Kia Soul or Celtis. And be sure to keep up with all of the news and breaking developments throughout the day on Newsmax, N2, and at Newsmax.com. And, of course, the president's address to Congress tonight. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Newsmax Daily Podcast. I appreciate it. Enjoy your Fat Tuesday, Shrove Tuesday, Taco Tuesday. Enjoy the president's address to Congress tonight and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.